Greetings and salutations. Second Star Right, talking some more Raid Shadow Legends. And today I want to talk about a topic near and dear to my heart, and that is the sometimes overlooked art of the buff steal. There are only 21 champions in the game currently that have this ability. There are 7 legendaries, 7 epics, 7 rares, and they all kind of implement the buff steal to varying degrees of success. Some have a really good way of synergizing buff steals all throughout their A1s, 2s, and 3s. Like, for instance, Warcaster has a really good way of kind of building buff steal and buff blockage, dealing with buffs in a way that synergizes and cascades throughout their skill set, whereas others will just have like one really good buff steal ability. Like Padma will have a really good buff steal ability. There's Madame Ceres that just does awesome buff mitigation. Or the other side of the coin is someone like Romero, who just kind of feels like they have buff steal tacked on to an A2 at the end of it. And it doesn't really affect anything, doesn't really synergize with the other skills. It's just kind of there and tacked on. And to me, that's not a good implementation of the skill. That's just kind of like a bonus. Right, so what I want to talk about today is the rares. There are 7. I think 3 of them use buff stealing really well, and 4 of them don't use it really well. Like I think Temptress, Slither Brute, Metal Shaper, and Anointed don't really use buff steal in a way that cascades along with their other skills. Anointed, if you think of it as crowd control, he has a freeze on his A1, so that's kind of cool. Anointed is not bad, but I don't really like the other ones. But what I'm going to talk to today are the 3 rares that I think use buff steal really well, and that is, of course, the Mystic Hand, who has been around forever and probably everyone knows about. I'll show you my Mystic Hand. He is a dark elf support, and he is really cool looking. I love his centipede tattoos or body paint or whatever the heck that is. He's really cool looking. And let's do his skills first. Tainted Blade attacks the enemy with a 30% chance of placing a block buff to buff for 2 turns. So it's already pretty strong. 30%, you can get it up to 40% with books. I put in 1 book thinking that when I first started, again, 3 weeks into the game, I'm like, oh, this guy needs to deal more damage. Doesn't deal enough damage. No, his damage does not matter. His stats are so low. His base stats are so low. Just do not think of him as a damage dealer. Think of him only as the way he mitigates your opponent's buffs and his Soul Link, which is a heal. You don't need to worry about anything else. If you want to put books in him, you're putting it in for the increased chance of getting this up to 40% instead of 30%. Turn the Tide is his big one. This is really good. A 3-turn cooldown. Attacks an enemy and steals 2 random buffs from the target. So you see there's no percent check there. There's only a resistance check. So you will always land it, and just it's up to your enemy to resist it. And you can increase the damage on it, but again, who cares about that? His Soul Link heals the ally with the lowest hit points by 25%, then equalizes hit points levels of all allies. So it's just a little heal that he has on his A3, and any little bit of sustain when you're in a fight is a good thing as far as I'm concerned. I did not invest anything in masteries in him, and his artifacts, again, that was 3 weeks into the game when I built him, did not have a lot of good stuff, so he hasn't really been touched in that regard. And no accessories, nothing. His base stats really low. The only thing that really matters, I think, is accuracy and speed to some extent. He's super slow, so any speed that you can give him is a bonus. Moving on, the other 2 champions are newer. We have in the Dwarf faction, so by dint of them being a new faction, this is obviously a newer hero. This is the Honor Guard. Let's look at his skills. Bellringer, he's defense-based. Attacks the enemy with a 50% chance of placing 25% decreased accuracy buff for 2 turns if the target has no active buffs. I have a lot of problems with this A1. 1, decreased accuracy is not very well implemented in the game visually. It might work really well, but who knows? You can never tell. And then the addition of having it only land if they have no active buffs is probably unnecessary. Fate Transfer, his A2, attacks 1 enemy with a 50% chance of stealing 2 random buffs from the target. So again, that sounds very similar to what Mystic Hand does, but Mystic Hand didn't have this 50% chance, it just placed it. then had to be resisted. And then this guy needs a ton of books, 6 books, to get his cooldown down to 3 turns and the chance of landing up to 75%. So obviously, already it's inferior, even booked, inferior to Mystic Hands. But the flip side is he does have a lot more survivability and deals a lot more damage. Astral Change, his A3. Astral Chains, his A3, attacks the enemy. It has a 75% chance of placing a block buffs to buff for 2 turns. So that's like what Mystic Hand had on his A1, he has on his A3. Again, damage based on defense. You can get that down to 4 turns, and you can get it up to 100% chance, but it takes 7 books to get there. Heavy book investment, and we see that on a lot of these later champions that came out, whereas Mystic Hand has a pretty light book investment. Champions that came out since November really just have a ton of books that need to be invested in, and it's crazy. Since October, when they started bringing out the new waves, they just require a lot more book investments, and I wonder why that is. I have no idea. It's a mystery to me. I did not increase this aura on neither him nor the Ogryn Jailer because it's not really necessary. Increases force ally defense on battles by 25%. I didn't really care about that. I did, however, invest a little bit in his masteries to just get a little bit more accuracy, primarily. And then the Ogryn Jailer, other counterpart. Let's go to skills first. He's an attack champion. Lockdown attacks one enemy with a 40% chance of removing 1 random buff from the target. So, not a steal, but a remove, but it's on A1, and you can get that chance up to 60% with only 4 books. That's really good. I would definitely suggest, if you're going to use the Ogryn Jailer as your primary buff stealing champion, you'd want to book him. Confiscate is A2. Attacks one enemy with a 40% chance of stealing 2 random buffs from the target, and places an extra hit if any buff is stolen. So again, looking very similar to the other A2s that we saw, where there's buff steal on the A2. This is a 4-turn cooldown rather than a native 3, but you can get it down to a 3-turn cooldown with 7 books. Again, like I've said, a lot of book investment in these newer champions. But you can also hit that 40% up to 50, 60, 75%. So not bad on his A2 there. And the extra attack, when extra hit, if any buff is stolen, is a nice bonus. And that leads into Reprisal, where as 5-turn cooldown, attacks one enemy. Damage increases by 20% if the target has no active buffs. So if your A1, your A2 are doing their job, the A3 comes in, cleans house. You can get that down to 4 turns and some additional damage with a 4-book investment. So not bad. This is, again, if you're going to use this guy as your primary buff stealer, I would consider putting those rare books in there. They're just rare books. They're not that hard to come by. Well, not as hard to come by as others. I did not increase his aura, which is an accuracy aura in dungeons. It is useful because you do need to place these buffs, but I kind of figured you can get it through masteries. I got his first 2-tier masteries up, and artifacts. I did not have as good gear as I had for the Honor Guard, but I did get his accuracy up to 100, which is probably good enough for our purposes. Alright, so what I did was I put all 3 of these champions in a team composition to run through Magic Keep. Now, they're only level 50s, so I won't be doing stage 15, but at level 50, with decent gear, with primarily even with better support, these level 50 champions can get through level 15 on a team of other 6-stars. No problem. I've been running my Mystic Hand through level 15 at level 50 with those middling stats you saw, that horrible gear, no masteries, no whatever. A Mystic Hand, he survives, no problem, just with Zealota throwing shields on him, and he does okay. And maybe that's because he's constantly stealing buffs from other people. I mean, that's part of the deal, right? So let's just run through, and this is going to be stage 11. Now, I've had discussions with people online, and they say, why run 15 when you can just run 11? And the energy is significantly less, over the course of time, because it's 10 energy instead of 12. And it's faster to go through, and the drops aren't all that different between 11 and 15. My personal feeling is I think 15 does drop better gear, does have better drop rates for the higher level potions than stage 11 does. But, there are people that feel otherwise. And so what I did was I just took a team of 50s and I'm going to bring them through 11. It'll be a quick fight, and they'll showcase their buff stealing abilities against these minions. The Hordens are buffing themselves right now, and I thought it'd just be a good enough showcase for it. So I have Spirit Host leading for speed and a buffing and buff clean, and I have Chevalier in for some support, some heals, and actually does surprisingly good damage. And then I have the 3 buff stealers coming in to do their thing. Alright, you'll see the boss will immediately put up a shield, and we will go to town and see what we can do. Let's see. Okay, so he uses A1. He removed the shield right away from the boss. Of course, the minion also has the ability to put up the shield on the boss, and does so immediately. So we have to deal with the shield again, but that's okay. Who's going to steal buffs next? Alright, there we go. Ogryn Jailer just uses Confiscate to steal the shield from the boss. We need to block buffs up there if we can. Hopefully someone will land that. No, not yet. So, shield goes back up. Oh, we got to block buffs up there for 2 turns. Let's see if someone can get the shield down. Yep, now the shield's down. Mystican took it this time. So you see, they're all trading it. Each one of them has stolen the shield now. Yeah, let's see if we can get through here. Oh, she got the shield up again. Let's see if anyone can deal with it. Or Chevalier just comes and goes through. Chevalier's A1 ignores shield, which is really cool in this dungeon. And there we go, stolen and dead. So there we go. Now, granted, most people are not going to be running 3 buff stealers through Magic Keep, but I just thought this was a quick and easy way rather than going through it 3 times with each person. Each person doing it. I thought I'd just stick them all there at the same time. I do have one more to show you, which ended up being really cool because of Chevalier, and I will run through that one right now. This shouldn't take long. I have it running at 150% rather than 200% because it just goes by kind of quick. All right, and there goes Horden's buff. Skull got stolen. Honor Guard took him, and now Mystican took Dayrell's buffs. This is fun, man. I really enjoy that. I've made this comparison many times, but it's the blue magic deck experience where someone tries to do something. It's like, no, I'm sorry, you can't. Counterspell, steal, return to deck. I always thought that was fun. All right, there goes the speed. Now the Hordens are buffing. Yeah, there goes his buffs, and he's dead. There goes his buffs. I just get kind of a perverse glee, almost, of stuff like this. Alright, shields up on the boss. Attack. He missed it, his A1 this time. But now Chevalier just goes ham. Look at him. Okay, so in one turn, Chevalier took out the minion using his Relentless Gear and just the native ability of his A1 to constantly regenerate with a 20% chance. So, Chevalier is so cool. What an underrated champion. I really want to bring him to 6 stars to see if this ability holds up later on. But I like having him at 52 so I can take him through content like this as support for mid-game examples. Alright, so who told Honor Guard stole the shield? Honor Guard blocked the buffs. And see, she tried to put up her buffs and was not able to do so because the block buff is still in effect. Decrease accuracy, who knows if that even does anything. And I think we're going to get her before she's able to put her buffs back up. Alright, so there we go. Same result, but a different way of getting there. Honor Guard pretty much carried the water for everybody. Everyone else is kind of missing their debuffs, but he was able to steal a shield. He put the block buffs up, and the block buffs enabled everyone to go through and clean house before she could put her buffs up again on her next cycle. So there you go. I really like the buff steal mechanic. I think it's fun. It's even cool in Arena. It's a bit harder in Arena because a lot of people build up their team for Arena, so they have the resist really high, and so therefore you need your accuracy really high. So that whole game of whack-a-mole can be irritating, but I just leveled my Skartosis to 60 or 6 stars. She's still at 57, but we're getting there. But I still bring Skartosis into Arena, and that AoE buff steal on A1 is a lot of fun. It's really cool, especially now where the speed nuking is more diminished and people are more relying on making their teams stronger throughout the course of battles. Things last a little bit longer, but if you can steal what the other team is trying to do and use it against them, it's a big advantage. And I think that's overlooked a little bit, but I think that it'd be fun to build an Arena team kind of around buff stealing if you can make it happen. If someone's done that, I'd really like to see it. I've done, like I said, I've done a little bit with my Skartosis, but I haven't built up any other real good buff stealers because I actually just don't have them. I don't have Padma or Warcaster, and maybe those would be cool in there. And I have a Harvest Jack, but the way that he uses buff steal is kind of dependent on other things working too, and it's just not really worth it in Arena. It's too hard to set up. But let's see. Basilius Ranis, the new Royal Huntsman looking guy, his brother, I guess, in the lore, he has a really good buff steal mechanic. So there are ways that you can make a cool Arena buff steal team. Gonna take a little bit more work on my part to get there, but Skartosis is a good start, and I'm having just a lot of fun. And that's the basis. Is I play this game to have fun, not necessarily to progress, obviously. But I'm enjoying finding new ways of doing things. So if you like this video, I really appreciate a like. That would help me a lot. Subscribing would be fantastic. Man, it's a slog to get those subscribers, but I'm working on it, and I hope you guys enjoy what I'm doing because I really enjoy doing it. All right, I will see y'all in the next video. Take care. Peace out.